Hey, IR4 patrons, thanks so much for tuning in. This guy is actually a patron, so not only are you going to get this email, but he's a supporter of the podcast as well. And we had a second interview with JL Musey. As you guys know, it was my fault. Somehow I deleted the recording or it was corrupted. I definitely did not delete it, but it didn't work, bottom line. So we redid it. Brian Masterson had some other schedules that he was not able to make, so I had this guy join. He knows a lot about 3D printing, so I figured, hey, why not get Jesse involved? And anyway, I hope you guys like this interview with JL. You guys are amazing. Thanks so much for supporting the IR4 podcast. And until next time, love, live, learn. You guys rock. Bye. Hey folks from around the world, welcome to the IR4 podcast. It's me, Jerry Alexander Newsom, with a guest appearance by Jesse Levan, trader and just an overall enthusiast of everything that's great. And of course we have JL Musey, who is going to be our 3D printing specialist for the day. We've been talking for a long time that we're going to get a 3D printing specialist in here, and he's going to be the guy who's going to be answering us a lot of questions. JL, just give us a little bit of background, my man, on your background, and tell us a little bit of how you got started on all this.
I've been an artist all my life. Started with 2D, eventually transitioned to graphic design and then into the 3D world. Studied computer animation and graphic design at UCF. Ended up teaching a game art course at Full Sail University here in Winter Park. So my life and a lot of my work does revolve around making models in 3D, and pretty much I got drawn into 3D printing because it's a way for artists like myself that make things in the computer to actually print them out and bring them into the real world as a tangible object. Gotcha.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the funny part is the people who are watching this, they already know that we've already done this before. So I wanted to just throw that out there. We've already had this discussion. So I know your answer. This is mostly for everyone else who is interested in 3D printing, because our first discussion was great. This was going to be fantastic as well. So how long have you been doing it since kind of your inception into the game?
I've been 3D printing on and off about 4 years now. I started just kind of outsourcing the work, getting my files prepped for 3D printing. I've gone through a bureau called Shapeways, which basically artists can not only sell their products, but also just get a print of their own works themselves. So I threw a bunch of stuff on Shapeways, and I got it printed out. And then about a year ago, I really decided, you know what, I really like this. I started doing more research on it, and actually bought my first 3D printer, which was a Raise 3D N2 Plus. So I've been 3D printing myself about a year, but prepping the models and just having a good working knowledge for about 3.
Right on. Where did you buy the 3D printer from?
I bought it directly through them.
Through 3D Systems?
3D.com. Yeah, there's a lot of manufacturers. It's a FDM printer, which is pretty much just a high-grade hobbyist level. So it's not an industrial printer. It's kind of more on just the higher-end consumer level as far as the printers go. But the reason I actually like this printer was because of the volume. So that is a big factor about the printers. So when you're actually looking to get one, one is, like I was telling you earlier, customer service. So, and it kind of boils down to 2 sets of people. And there's kind of that computer analogy that, you know, you can go through Dell and you can pretty much overpay for a PC, right? Yep. Versus you creating that same PC yourself. But at the same time, you pay for that support, you pay for that, customer service if something were to break down, right? And I'm somewhat technical, but I can't build a printer myself, right? So there are guys that just buy the kits, build them themselves, but I'm not that tech savvy, and I recently had an issue with my printer, and the guys at Raise 3D did a great job of creating a manual for me how to replace the ribbon cable. So, you know, if I had actually just kind of created that myself, I would probably been out of luck, right, as far as just buying a kit and making the printer myself. So just like anything, you kind of pay what you get for. If you're a tinkerer, you could probably venture off and pay a little bit less. But if you're somewhere in the middle and you're not really that mechanical savvy, then going with more well-known company kind of helps out when you have issues.
Sure, totally. And I'm super excited to show everyone this video that you made, because I do want to pause for a moment. When you said you're not tech savvy, you're very tech savvy. You're exceptionally tech savvy. Just not building in 3D printers.
I meant tech savvy in the fact of just mechanically, as far as being able to. I'm pretty good with the computer. That's where I feel comfortable. But if I have to open the back of a PC, maybe swapping out a cable or two, but I'm not the type that can rebuild a computer or rebuild a printer, right, without some help. That's what I meant.
Totally makes sense. I'm going to bring this, let me see if I can minimize this guy. I'm going to show this video that you created and just kind of walk everyone through the process. And you said you want to kind of narrate this whole thing. Really just fantastic video. So I'm going to kind of press play. And you just kind of walk us through what we're seeing, what we're looking at, and your thought process, and just getting the whole creation going.
Yeah, so I decided to create your real life trading logo in 3D. The first part is actually creating this file into the digital realm, right? So I'm using the package from Autodesk. It's called Maya. It's primarily used for games and computer animation, 3D animation, but it really can be used for anything. So I'm basically just starting with primitives and pushing and pulling vertices, edges, and faces to create this logo. So this is pretty much it.
This is awesome.
Yeah, that is, so this is the artistic component. I mean, if you as an artist, you mentioned earlier that you can create a 3D file and have it online and someone can buy that file, all the images. But I mean, as an artist, that's your specialty, is creating these new files, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's what I've been doing for a very long time. I've been doing 3D modeling for well over 10 years now, and I've used a lot of different packages. So I feel pretty comfortable doing this. And I've been doing it for a while. And this is what's great, right? Just being able to do something on a computer, translate something that's only 2D and kind of bring it into a 3D environment is pretty exciting for an artist such as myself.
Yeah, no, I mean and there's so much that goes into this. I mean, when we're looking at this, you're building layers, you're stretching, you're adding. There's just so much that goes into it, and like I said, I know we talked about this before, but it's still fascinating to even see multiple times. How did you know to create the components to keep it stable?
Well, I developed the term "by the salsa" years ago, and this guy Jeremy, I think he stole it. No, I really like that saying that you came up with, "by the salsa." I thought it was witty, and I wanted to incorporate it into the logo. But yeah, just Maya has some great built-in tools where. If you notice, I actually typed in "by the salsa," right? So that was done through Curve. So Maya does have a like a text feature on there where you can create text, but for your RL, right, that was a custom logo. So it's not like I could just download the font and just pop that in there, right? You took your time developing that logo. So that's why for that part, I just started with the image as far as reference, and I modeled that by hand.
Sure.
And this bottom piece is more like a pedestal. Your logo is, if I were to print it, unless I were to connect it, the R and the L would just fall apart. So this kind of brings the base to it, makes it a little bit more stable.
Yeah.
And these are the things that you have to think about when you do 3D modeling for 3D print, right?
Yeah.
If this was just an animation, probably wouldn't have to think about it that much. But when you do tie in 3D modeling, it does have a kind of an engineering subcomponent to it.
Yeah, that's the thing that blew me away for sure, is like you mentioned, that the engineer component of not only are you printing this, but if you're designing a new model, you have to think through the functionality of how is it actually going to be stable, how's it going to work, how's it actually going to be useful.
Correct. So right now I'm in a package called Idea Maker, which is a slicer. So once you create a 3D model, you have to prepare for print, and that's where a package like this preps the pretty much the file for printing. There's a lot of them out there. This came with my printer. Other people go through a package called Cura. You could also use Simplify 3D. Most of these do similar jobs. It just kind of goes to user preference. But what I'm doing right now is just adding and removing supports. So just like a skyscraper, you really can't build on thin air. And since this is a layer by layer process, it needs those supports. So you'll notice that right up in the R and the little part of the L, where especially towards the top, that needs support. And if I were to print, the machine and the package will let you print without support, but eventually it'll fail, right? And
sure,
this print took about 16 hours to create. So it is a slow process. Patience is definitely needed. But at the same time, it's equivalent of almost like setting up a trade, right? You get in your entry, you get in your stop, and that's kind of the hard part. And then, once you do all the work, you just got to hit play, right? And you got to have patience for it and just see things play out. But yeah.
JL, you said you've been doing this for about 10 years. I assume like the software's gotten a lot easier to work with over those years too for you?
Now, as far as the 3D modeling software, yes. As far as the 3D printing realm, I don't know. Like I said earlier, I've only been printing myself and slicing things up and preparing directly for print for about a year. But just like anything software, it always improves. There's updates coming out, and yes, over the course of time, the learning curve, the packages do make things easier, but you still got to learn the fundamentals.
Right.
And there are a lot of fundamentals to learn once you're actually doing the printing yourself. I don't know if you paid attention to that software and some of the settings, but the rabbit hole can get pretty deep pretty quickly on that.
Oh, sure. I can imagine. And this is the actual printing process.
Yep. So this is FDM. FDM is an acronym for it is fused deposition modeling. And basically what that means is that it just melts the plastic and it goes through an extruder, and then it has fans on both sides. And as it layers, as it goes through the layering process, it cools the plastic and then it hardens. And that's how it's able to make the shape. And this is a time-lapse recording of this. If you look to the right of the video, you'll see something that looks like a cartridge of weed eater roll.
Yeah.
Right? Well, that's the plastic. That's how the plastic comes. That is PLA right there.
And that can be any color and any type of material?
There are some limits to the material. Color, sky's the limit, pretty much. There's dozens of brands out there with different colors, different properties. Something like this, like PLA, you're probably going to put this on your desk or, on a coffee table. So I didn't have to think about a lot about, how much stress it's going to hold. But, if you wanted to hook this to your pull-up bar and hang on and do a couple sets of that, I probably would have printed using ABS, which is it's more of a commercial grade, higher duty plastic. Also, I probably would have increased the infill, right? Because this is right now is only at about 4%. So, if you're going to put a lot of stress, the thicker it is inside, the stronger the components are going to be.
Gotcha.
Are there certain printers just for the different media types, or can like this printer do different media?
What do you media as far as materials?
Yeah, the materials, right? Yep.
Yep. So this printer can definitely do a lot of different materials. Anytime that you switch a material, there's different temperature settings, different things that you have to pretty much think about. When you do, for example, ABS printing, you actually have to enclose it because it needs a heated it needs a higher temperature to actually fully print correctly, right? So it's every time that you switch the material, there are a lot of tweaks that you have to do within the printer and the printer settings to get it to print correctly. But yes, there's definitely a lot of those possibilities as far as materials.
Right on, right on. So this part right here in this video, what's are these your hands, Jo?
Yes, those are my hands moving at the speed of light. And this is the process of cleaning up, right? So the supports I put earlier on Idea Maker, well, you have to remove them, right? And it's kind of a balancing act between supports and not using supports. At the end of the day, supports can be a little bit of an issue if you overdo it, meaning if you put too much or you make them too thick, sometimes they can get fused into the print, and when you're removing them, it can damage the print. So it's kind of a balancing act. Ideally, you want to print with little to no supports as possible, but you are fighting gravity with these 3D prints, right? So for your print, I think I used pretty much the bare minimum, and it still worked.
Totally. And so these images in the video, these are creations that you made as well?
Correct. So this is a mask. A lot of cosplayers actually use 3D printing to create costumes, right? Of just pop culture stuff. And yeah, this is a scorpion mask from the Mortal Kombat character. And this is a Apocalypse. This is from the Marvel Universe, Apocalypse. And I created him using a program called ZBrush. And yeah, I threw him in my printer. And this guy's pretty big. It takes up my whole dinner table. So a lot of times I have to throw the plate on the floor and then let Apocalypse have the whole table. But
how long did that take to create Apocalypse?
It's actually still, I'm still going through it because I told you I had to replace a part.
Yeah. So
that kind of slowed me down. But just the head part of that guy, which he's life-size, so his head is actually bigger than mine if I were to put him next to me. You know what? Here, I can give you a sense of scale because this is how big he is.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
And this first part right here took about a week to print, right?
And that's just continuously printing for a whole week.
Yep. It has a lot of poor details on there, if you can see.
Wow.
And printing speeds are something that can greatly change, right?
Yep.
So the bigger you go, obviously, just the more time. But also, it comes down to resolution. So when you set the layer height, the lower the layer, the more detail you're able to bang in. And since I had so much detail on them, I had to go pretty low. I had to go the lowest that my printer could handle, which is 0.1 millimeter, right? So the finer the layers, the more resolution you get throughout your model.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Well, so I guess the big questions from here then are going to be future related. So tell us a little bit about the industry right now for 3D printing. Who uses it and why?
Right now, it's spread out through a lot of different industries. And there's people at the hobbyist level. Like myself, I'm kind of a hybrid between a hobbyist, but I'm also an artist. So a lot of people just buy 3D printers and download files through things like Thingiverse, right? And they just print them, right? They just print them, they lay them on their shelf, and that's pretty much what they use them for. Then there's artists like myself that do 3D prints, they do logo designs. It kind of helps them push their art to another level. And it's kind of like the crypto debate, right? Like when this is going to get really big, I think it's when the curve of pretty much the difficulty curve comes down a little bit. Actually Apple just filed for a patent for 3D printing, right? So I think where this is all going to come together is right now, there is an app called Clone, Qlone. It's a phone app that with your phone, you could scan things into your phone as a 3D object, right? So that's one part of the puzzle because you can't have 3D printing without 3D models, right? So the more ways that there's 3D models flowing into a device, say an iPhone or a Samsung, that's going to be kind of the first catalyst, in my opinion, to actually be able to print more things out, right? Because if everybody had to go through the process that I went through to get a 3D model, it's probably not going to be a mainstream type of invention, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just because of the learning curve. So 3D scanning, getting things into a device is kind of the first half of there, or the first half of the race, right? And the second part is just being able to print and just bringing down just kind of that overall learning curve. Now, as far as just overall industries, there are going to be some disruptions. I'm not sure to what degree, but 3D printing is being used for construction, right? So instead of guys shoveling concrete, now they actually build what looks very similar to what I was doing with plastic, but there's machines that actually lay down concrete with an extruder type of.
Whoa! Oh my goodness! That's like so they could create a 3D, like I'm assuming it's a huge 3D printer, but it would be able to almost lay the concrete.
Correct. So it's pretty much just like a big crane, like a big rig type of setup, and then it moves. And just like I was laying down the plastic on a smaller scale, it lays down concrete on a bigger scale. So that's one of the disruptions that I see happening. Also, healthcare. There's a lot of use in this in prosthetics, right? Yeah. Prosthetics is a very, in the days of old, if me and you were amputees, they kind of had almost predetermined sizes for those prosthetics. Sure. And now they're able to go in there, measure, and really have more of a custom assembly because just because the development of these parts is a lot quicker, and you could iterate a lot faster with a process like 3D printing, right? So people are getting their prosthetics that fits right on their arm, and it's a lot more accurate, and it fits with their overall anatomy a lot better.
Yeah, totally. No, that makes sense. And one of the things that was truly interesting to me that we chatted about earlier was when you mentioned, I think this is great for entrepreneurs and people who have really good ideas. I was kind of want to almost throw a pitch your way for them. But if someone was thinking of a model or something that they wanted to create, they just didn't know how to create it in scale, I suggest someone reach out to a 3D printer, so a printing specialist, so that way give an idea, even if it's a sketch of, hey, I would love to get this created. I have an idea for this particular product, whatever it is. Maybe it's a gasket or a widget or a workout device or a new toothbrush or whatever it is. Get that sketch to have an artist sketch it, and then take that sketch and send it to a 3D printer specialist. They can actually print your model, and once you have a model, then you can give it to a factory, or you can at least get an idea of, you can start scaling it. And then once you have something tangible, you're able to patent it and sell it much faster. So I see this as a really good avenue for entrepreneurs or anyone looking to create something as a fantastic possibility to get that in the market much faster.
I definitely agree, and I think the one of the biggest impacted, it's not more of an industry, but more just like a department, is R&D, right? Research and development. Let me, for example, your real life trading logo. I'm pretty sure that, did you go through a graphic designer, or did you do it yourself? Yep. You went through a graphic designer? Yep. I'm pretty sure that you went through a lot of iterations, right? And a lot of back and forth on getting that look exactly how you want it.
Absolutely.
Correct?
Yep, absolutely.
Yep. So imagine not only, and that was a 2D image, right? So it didn't need any type of mechanical functionality to it, right? So imagine developing some kind of product that's supposed to bear some kind of weight or some stress. How hard that could be to iterate, right? Because design all across the board, whether it's 2 or 3D, it's an iterative process, right? You go back, you change ideas, you redesign, you reprint. So R&D is being definitely sped up with 3D printing. And if you need a product to hit market, this can considerably cut down that timeline before you actually get that product into consumers' hands.
Absolutely, which I think is huge. I mean, that's massive. Earlier we were talking about the different types of materials that you can use, and we've been chatting a little bit about that. Metal, is metal able to be used, and how does that get? I guess how does it get? Like you said, the plastic gets melted and cooled and then reapplied. Does the metal get cooled and reapplied, or how does that work?
Let me. I actually do have. Yep. So this guy is. I didn't print him myself, but
yeah.
If you could.
Wow.
You can hear this
so
is metal.
cool.
And I went through Shapeways. This was one of my earlier designs that I did. But definitely, now metal, it is printed slightly different. And there are some design things that you have to take into account. But yeah, you could definitely print with metal. I couldn't do that with that printer. That was one of the other reasons I did end up outsourcing that. But it's definitely a possibility. And there's a lot of materials out there. Now, as far as just kind of the home level or the hobbyist level printers, those can't print metal, right?
Yeah.
But it's definitely possible to print in a lot of different materials.
Gotcha.
Like metal.
So we're also, you're mentioning earlier about prosthetics. I mean, there have been artificial, what's it called, like organs, right, created through 3D printing.
Yep. So same thing. Organs, they all work a little bit different. They're all a little bit different as far as just their anatomy, size, and basically for medical usage, there have been organs that are printed in different materials. A lot of times they're actually wrapped in human tissue, so there's no rejection in the body once the surgeons do implant them. But I mean, think about just what a pacemaker is, right? It's a mechanical device. And now that's just kind of being a little replaced by 3D printing. Another great thing that I actually looked into is, and I think this one makes a lot of sense as far as just the disruption of it, but space travel, right? Think about the possibilities of, especially when the space program is doing this big push to get to Mars. And, imagine the ability of if we're in a spaceship and, we break some kind of component. Well, Amazon Prime is probably going to take more than 2 days shipping to get out to Mars, right? But if we had a 3D printer on board, all really NASA would have to do is just send us a file, and with our printer, we could actually replace that part. Right?
Wow, I never even thought about that. That's huge.
Yeah, so I think, instances where obviously Mars is a very extreme case, but it could even apply to things on Earth, right? If you're really far and, Walmart is not, 30 minutes from you, more like 6 hours. So maybe you live in Alaska or you live somewhere very remotely and you need just a simple piece. 3D printing could be a viable option for you for creating simple replacement parts.
Yeah. Man, I never even thought about that. What is what you were mentioning before I got on about 3D printing? Is that something that your business does, or?
Yeah, so I work for Johnson Matthey. We deal with precious metals, and I know we're starting to invest in 3D printing with precious metals, and then we also have we use like ceramic powders. So we've been using that.
Okay.
And I know a lot of stuff they're looking at is just that they're able to use this 3D printing to make a lot of intricate designs and even parts that, they have different components that when they're forged, it's hard to get the little designs inside. Some things like that have high flow efficiency in them. So you can 3D print that for better flow efficiency. So stuff like that. So I don't know if you had any experience with that or seeing anything in kind of those realms.
When you speak of precious metals with gold and jewelry, is that one of the things that you deal with? Because there is a huge market, and this is something that a lot of 3D artists are doing through sites like Shapeways, is designing jewelry. So that typically jewelry was not something 3D artists would create, but with the kind of evolution of 3D printing, now there's just a lot of 3D artists that exclusively design jewelry, right? And it's being printed in gold or in different precious metals. as well as you could actually create molds from the 3D prints themselves and have more of a mass production type of setup.
Yeah, so with our company, a big part that they're looking to use it for is in the catalyst division. So creating like all kinds of different catalysts for cars and companies and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of like intricate pieces inside of there. So that's what they're looking to use it for. So yeah, which kind of reminded me when you were talking about the different medical components. They could use almost that same thing. You could design all these intricate pieces that have little flow paths and everything inside them with the 3D printing. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's what he's saying is absolutely right. There are things that you can create or designs that with traditional manufacturing, it was really not possible. But with 3D printing, it's definitely a possibility. And just like he was saying, there's pieces inside of pieces, and just mechanically, you were not able to create a design. So 3D printing, not only does it create your designs that you put in a computer, but it actually opens the avenue for more intricacies into those designs. So it kind of works both ways as far as design and also output.
Man, that's fascinating. So JL, a quick question regarding just the technology of 3D printing. So this is just my opinion. I could be entirely wrong about this, but let me know. It seems that the growth curve of 3D printing is a lot slower than other technologies around. This has been around, like you said, how almost a decade? A little bit longer, maybe?
It's been around. Let me see here. It's been around since the 1981. Whoa! It actually started.
I did not know that.
Obviously, just like anything, it's very expensive and it wasn't wasn't available for the end consumer. But that's when it started, right? So it's been around for a while.
Well, in that point, then it kind of even I guess skyrockets my argument, because my thought is I thought it's been around for 10 years, but going back that far, if we take the cell phone, for example, cell phone coming out, the huge brick, and then a year later it's 2 years later you got the Razor, and then you got the QD keyboard, now you got the iPhone, and you just see like a massive scale. You've talked about Xeroxes or faxing machines or regular printers. You see just an absolute exponentially quick curve as just how fast regular consumers began to use it. Why do you think that was massively slow with 3D printing? Because at this point, I think both you and I could agree that it's going to be a long way away for just your general consumer to go, all right, I need to create this part, or I need to create this piece of art, or I need to create XYZ product. Let me just go ahead and make this and flip a switch and put it in this file and make it happen. Why is that taking so long, in your opinion?
Well, just like we've kind of mentioned all these industries, right? Even though it does help industries, still it doesn't address the everyday consumer, right? The average everyday guy with a cell phone, a tablet, and a laptop.
Yep.
And I think two things are going to happen. And like I said, back to the crypto debate, right? We know there's a use for it, right? And some people could definitely see the value. But the big question mark is, when's it going to replace the dollar, right? When are we going to be able to go to Subway or Pizza Hut and actually it's going to be embraced just like the dollar? That's kind of a longer term scale. Nobody really knows. So we know there's a benefit to crypto and just kind of the whole blockchain technology, but just that overall timeline when everybody adopts it, that's the big question mark, right? And I think this is very similar to 3D printing. We know that there's a value to it. We know there's industries that are going to be affected by this. But when's the everyday average Joe going to have a 3D printer next to their desktop printer at home, right?
Yeah.
And I think two things have to happen. I don't have the crystal ball of when, but I think things are shaping towards that direction. Is one, we need 3D models, right? For things to be 3D printed, you actually need a 3D model.
Yes.
You actually need that data for the printer to do its thing, right? So, and I think now there's actually phones and apps, like we discussed, that can create 3D models of people, of objects. You can buy a scanning device. So there's definitely things out there already. But I think the first thing that needs to happen is every phone with their built-in camera is going to be able to capture a 3D object, right? You're going to be able to go to Walmart and, you say, you know what, I like this product, but I don't want to pay the $5. You can go ahead and take your phone out, scan it, then you can go home, and it's not going to be $1,000 or a $3,000 printer, but it's probably going to have to come down to around the $200 or the $100 price point, similar to what desktop printers are now priced at, right? And also the learning curve, right? I don't see the average Joe just putting in the time to figure all these print settings. So maybe you have a quality slider where you say you want fine, medium, or low quality. It tells you the time. You're able to take your phone, shoot that over to an app, select the quality, and then maybe in 30 or an hour, your product is there, right? So I think the speed, not only the price of the printer is going to have to come down, but also the speed of the print speed is obviously have to go up exponentially.
Yeah.
So I think with all these pieces, just getting the data into a mobile device, the learning curve, and also the printing speed, once all those things kind of become more feasible, I think it is going to start taking mainstream proportions as far as the industry.
Gotcha. Man, that's fascinating. So I know I've kept you for a long time. This will be my last question, JL. In regards to investing in 3D printing, what is your kind of take on, is 3D Systems the way to go? Is Stratus? Should we go with like one of the softwares like Autodesk or a DSK? Or is there any other company out there that you think is really a good investment opportunity just in this particular space because of what their technology or what they're doing?
Yep. So you got Stratus, you got 3D Systems, Autodesk, right? They do make the software. I was using Maya, right? But they have a whole suite of products. A lot of them are 3D based, and I did it more on the artistic end. But if I was doing this more for a production, I would probably use some kind of CAD software, which Autodesk also makes. But as far as a call on, where I'm telling you, you could buy Autodesk at this price point because 3D printing is gonna, double or triple the stock in 5 years. It's hard to say. It will make a change in a lot of different companies and stocks, but not directly, right? So we mentioned R&D. So a lot of companies that make products are going to be affected by this because they're going to be able to hit market a lot quicker. But that might not be something that's going to transfer to a earnings report, and they're going to say, well, you know what, we were able to get this product out quicker because of 3D printing. So I think the correlation and the investability of it, as far as the companies, it's a hard call to make. We did discuss kind of all the benefits. So I'm not sure. I can't say for certainty that Autodesk or Stratus is going to take off because there's a lot of printers that are not the majority of printers that people use just on a consumer level. They're not made by Stratuses and they're not made by 3D Systems, right? The printer I have, and just kind of I'm in a lot of groups and they're not made, and they're just smaller printers. They're smaller They're smaller companies that actually make these printers, right? And they're not public.
Interesting.
So as far as an investment tip, I believe that's the professionals over at Real Life Trading.
I appreciate it, man. You got a killer smile, by the way, dude. Because the reason I'm bringing that up is because, again, I know this is our second conversation, but we did. I did want to bring up I just remembered the dental aspect of this too. People printing 3D models of like the teeth and replacement of teeth, and that whole part of the medical industry. There's a lot out there for 3D printing that's just beginning to get scraped. The surface is going to get scraped, and I'm really, really excited to see what kind of disruption this leads to, and what type of solutions this particular industry brings.
Yep, it's exciting stuff, and like I said, it's going to seep down to a lot of production through a lot of different industries.
Yeah, you're totally right. Hey, man, thanks so much for sharing your time with us, brother. I really appreciate it. Your second time.
Okay, make sure you actually save the recording this time.
I'm working on that, man. I'll make sure that happens. Hey, JL, thanks so much, brother. You rock.
See you, JL.
And appreciate it. Have a good one.
All right, man. Take care.